Hey guys, Mr. Friel here. Hey, so this year I was thinking one thing that we would do would be I would post videos online about current events, things, debates, things that we could really get into and really hopefully enjoy. And you could have like all week to do some research, to think about it, and then on Friday we would get back and actually talk about it, right? And talk about it hopefully with some um, evidence and some actual reasons and not just emotional. Because when you have emotional arguments, not that they don't matter, but it's good to have real things to back that up, right? And so there's a lot that went down a couple weeks ago in the town of Charlottesville. We're not going to go all into that, and maybe we could later if you want to talk about that separately. We can. But the underlying issue that started it was about what? Well, it was about statues, and should we take a statue down or not, right? And the statue in particular was Robert E. Lee, right? And you have to remember who Robert E. Lee is, right? Well, Robert E. Lee was the general of the South, right? The lead general, really important figure in the South. He actually was a really important member of the U.S. Army before the South too, right? And from Virginia, which is where this town is located in, and that stuff, right? So there's a statue of him. Well, in order to figure out should this statue be torn down, I feel like you need to ask yourself some questions, right? First off, you need to know who Robert E. Lee is, all right? Beyond was he just the general of the South? So I want you to think this week, like, well, who was Robert E. Lee? Like, what did he do? Does he deserve a statue or not? Sure, he was the general, okay, but were there other things he did that we could look at as signs of good things and not just, well, he helped try to keep slavery, right? I also want you to think about, what do statues actually mean? I mean, when you see a statue, are you honoring someone? Is it more of a remembrance, whether good or bad? I mean, what's really their purpose and meaning? And if that might matter, right? Because if you think they're always an honoring of someone, then maybe we should get rid of them. If it's more of a remembrance, maybe that's okay to remember something bad. It's important to remember things that are bad too, right? Um, I guess I also want to. You'd also have to think, well, what did the Confederacy really do, or what was it really standing for? I mean, was the Confederacy solely for slavery, or was the Confederacy, for other things? Were there other issues, other problems, other things that it stood for and tried to solve that maybe I don't want to say weren't bad. I mean, because slavery is bad, right? I mean, everybody agrees slavery is bad, but maybe it stood for more. Maybe the Confederacy stood for more. All right, and maybe that's why some people don't want to erase it. Um, I guess my other thing would be, if we were to tear them down, are you trying to erase history? That's a common theme, right? People are like, well, if we tear these things down, you're going to erase history. Is that true? And that's up to you, right? Um, we can debate that, right? And then my last thing, and probably the most important one, is this: how do you juggle people's being offended by things, right? So you have people who are offended because they say it's a sign of slavery, oppression, and bad time in American history with slavery. And again, almost everybody condemns slavery, I would say, right? Hopefully everybody, but maybe there's one person somewhere, I don't know. But anyway, so that was a bad time, right? But so if you remove that, though, are you also then violating people's freedoms and rights and offending them who support not slavery but the statue, right? And the history and the legacy that, not that they, love the Confederacy, but they understand the past is important. So you're offending them. Or if you leave it up, then you're offending the people who are against slavery. And how do you balance that offensiveness of, we all have equal rights, but how do we make sure our rights don't encroach on each other to have someone have more rights than the other? And we're going to talk more about that idea later. But I really want you to think about that idea of, if I give up something to appease someone else, am I also giving up some of my rights, if that kind of makes sense? And then can that offend me? Or is that offensive to me in order not to be offensive to them, right? So we'll talk about that idea. But I want you this week to look for an article or something about the Robert E. Lee statue, and on Friday we can have a debate about whether we think this statue should have been taken down, not taken down, and kind of those questions I asked you about, right? Like really reflect on those and see, what's my personal opinion about those things. So see you guys on Friday. We'll talk about it.